Okay.
President Lippy, it appears that Debbie Veal has joined, but does need to be promoted to a panelist.
Okay.
This is the moderator. Thank you, Anne. I will go ahead and promote Debbie up to a panelist. Debbie, if you could please unmute your microphone so we can do a quick mic check.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
And
Are we not on video?
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes, would you like me to give my intro?
Well, I was going to have you give it a little bit after I get started, so if that's okay with you.
That sounds good to me. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, Northern California, Southern California, and whoever else is with us. Welcome to the June 18th, 2020 board meeting. I'm Greg Lippy, president of the board. Before we convene, I'd like to advise all individuals observing or participating in the meeting that the meeting is being conducted consistent with the provisions of Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N-29-20. Participants watching the webcast will only be able to observe the meeting. Anyone interested in participating in the meeting must join the WebEx meeting. Information and instructions are posted on our website. All lines are currently on mute. As I facilitate this portion of the meeting, with the exception of our council, to allow for proceeding in an orderly manner and with full participation, lines will remain on mute until I direct staff to open lines for members of the public who wish to comment. I will announce when we are accepting public comment on the various issues, and staff will open the lines as appropriate. I have advised staff to allot 2 minutes to each person wishing to comment. This approach is necessary to facilitate the meeting and ensure that the board can complete its necessary business, including consideration of the petitions included on the meeting agenda. I appreciate everyone's understanding and patience as we navigate this meeting format. Before we get started, I would like to ask staff that's moderating the meeting to provide general instructions. Okay, now your turn.
Thank you. This is the moderator of the meeting. Welcome to the pharmacy board meeting. Before we get started, I would like to remind board members and senior staff who are not speaking to please mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting, I will interject briefly with a friendly reminder or simply mute your microphone. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. When the board president reaches a point in the agenda in which public comment is appropriate, public comment will be requested at the board's direction, and I will turn on and announce the opening of the Q&A feature. Members of the public can observe the meeting through webcast. However, if they would like to participate in public comment, they must enter the WebEx event through the link provided in the agenda. Members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by clicking on the icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom center of their WebEx screen. These instructions will be on the screen and shared each time for your reference. In the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, members of the public who wish to make a public comment will type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send to all panelists. Any other communication will not be responded to. It is not necessary to identify yourself in order to make a public comment, and I will take comments in the order that they are received. I will call on the member of the public, unmute their microphone, and the member of the public will be allowed 2 minutes to make their comments and given a 10-second warning. And at the conclusion, their microphone will be muted and we will move on to the next member of the public who has comment. Please note that the Q&A feature is being used only as a means for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. Once unmuted, the member of the public may verbally state their comment. It is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. If any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subjected to profane language. You are free to express criticism or negative views. For the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. If you do not have a microphone, please click on Communicate at the top of your screen, then Audio Connection, call in Audio Connection, and this If you need further assistance, please refer to the How to Join DCA WebEx event guide that was provided with the board meeting link. Thank you.
Okay. As indicated on the agenda, the board will convene in closed session after deliberating on all the open session items except adjournment. Due to technological limitations, adjournment will not be broadcast. Adjournment will immediately follow closed session, and there will be no other items of business discussed. I will now take a roll call to establish a quorum. Members, as I call your name, please remember to open your line before speaking. Debbie Veal.
Here. Present.
Thank you. Ryan Brook.
Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
Yes. Sure. Maria Serpa.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Albert Wong. I know he's here. Okay. Jig Patel.
I'm here.
Thank you. Shirley Kim. Is Shirley with us? No. Okay. Ricardo Sanchez.
I'm here, public member.
Thank you. Cheryl.
I'm here.
Thank you. Sung Oh.
Here.
Thank you. And I'm here. Okay. With a quorum being established, the board will now entertain any public comments for items not on the agenda. To facilitate this portion of the meeting, as I previously announced, staff will open the phone line for individuals to provide the opportunity to provide their public comment. You're not required to identify yourself, but you may do so. As we open the lines, I'd like to remind everyone that the board cannot act on these items except to decide whether to place an item on a future agenda. Members, following the review of the public comments for this agenda item, I will survey members to determine if any members have preference for items to be placed on a future agenda. Okay, moderator, please open the lines.
All right, this is the moderator. At the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom of your WebEx screen. I'm sharing instructions on the screen for reference. As a reminder, if a member of the public would like to participate in public comment, they must enter the WebEx event through the link provided in the agenda. I'll give the public a moment to access the Q&A. All right, so I have a couple members of the public who indicated that they would like to make a public comment. First individual is identified as Sai. Sai, I will unmute your microphone, and you will be given 2 minutes to speak. You will also be given a 10-second warning, and at the end of your 2 minutes, you will be muted again. Sai, you are now unmuted.
Hi. Great. You can all hear me?
Correct.
Yeah.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for holding this meeting. My name is Sai Upadhyayula. I'm a doctor of pharmacy, a registered pharmacist. I'm also a newly graduated JD from the University of California, Irvine School of Law.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Where today I've spent over 2 years representing and advocating for victims of domestic violence through the UCI Domestic Violence Clinic. So I have drafted a petition, joined by several wonderful colleagues at the forefront of pharmacy practice, asking the Board of Pharmacy for an interpretative ruling or an agency policy statement, clarifying that community-based pharmacists are not covered practitioners under California's domestic violence mandatory reporting provision, that's codified California Penal Code 11160. That is to reinforce for the benefit of pharmacists and the public under the law that community pharmacists are not mandatory reporters for intimate partner violence in the community setting. Domestic violence is a critical healthcare issue with long-lived medical and social consequences for affected individuals. However, research strongly shows that mandatory reporting obligations, actual or perceived, actually deter vulnerable victims of domestic violence from accessing care services and resources in common clinical venues. Now, I conducted some statutory analysis and determined that community pharmacists are not subject to these mandatory reporting obligations, and in fact are well poised to screen for domestic violence in appropriate cases, and promoting health and safety while preserving autonomy for needful patients. However, I think there's an abundance of confusion on this issue among pharmacists and patients alike, and this chills both parties from collaborating to reduce the impact of domestic violence in our communities. I believe this matter is also increasingly
10
urgent in
seconds.
light of numerous reports indicating a surge in domestic abuse due to the COVID-19 circumstance. And I think recently we've also come to learn that policing is not.
Sai, I have muted your microphone as your 2 minutes have been up. Thank you.
Thank you, Sai.
We will go to the next individual who has requested public comment, individual identified as Robert. Robert, I will unmute your microphone. You will be given 2 minutes to speak. At the end of 2 minutes, you will be muted again. Robert, your microphone is now unmuted.
Good morning, board. This is Robert Stein, professor of practice for pharmacy law and ethics at KGI School of Pharmacy. I just would like to suggest for a future agenda item the issue of pharmacists performing CLIA-waived COVID-19 antigen testing. The current situation is rather murky in terms of whether a pharmacist is able to actually perform such a test if they have CLIA-waived equipment and reagents. Currently, the CDPH says COVID-19 testing shall be performed only in an appropriately licensed lab under direction of a lab director. It's questionable in terms of whether that would include a CLIA-waived lab, such as a pharmacy that has a pharmacist as a lab director. It just needs some clarity. And obviously, there's huge issues with respect to potential liability, false negatives, and so forth. But I believe that as a public service and allowing access to more readily available COVID-19 testing, as a public policy, I believe the board should investigate and basically provide guidelines for pharmacies that wish to perform the CLIA-19 waived testing. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, this is the moderator. I've muted Rob's mic. Board President, that was the last individual who has indicated they would like to make public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature now?
Yes, please. Members, having received public comment, I'm going to now take a roll call to determine if any of you would like to place either of the items on future agenda. So I will start with Jig Patel. Please unmute.
Thank you, President Lippy. Yes, I would like to put CLIA-waived COVID-19 testing on future agenda.
Okay. Next would be Cheryl Butler.
Yes, I would like to do that also. And I wasn't positive about where the pharmacist wanted us to go with the domestic violence, but I would like to also look into that.
Look into it. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, at this point, we do have motions for both. So I'm going to take.
President Lippy,
Yes.
this is Maria Serpa. I would suggest that we amend the suggestion to that they go to the Reg Committee first, if that's
Okay.
appropriate.
Okay.
Hey, can I?
A motion.
This is Debbie. Maria, what would you think about the COVID going to licensing? Because I think that might be more appropriate, and then domestic violence go to Reg.
That's fine. I just would think that we would want to go to a committee first. And so those assignments I would leave up to the president and yourself.
Okay. So so that's a motion. The motion is being made.
I'll second it, Greg. This is Debbie. I will second that.
Okay. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to assign both of these to committees. And the committees are to be determined by president and vice president. That is the motion. We have a motion and a second. Do we have public comment? Please open the lines for this.
All right, this is the moderator. At the direction of the board, I will open the Q&A feature now. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon of the question mark within a square located at the bottom center of your screen. And then as a reminder, if a member of the public would like to participate in public comment, they must enter the WebEx event through the link provided in the agenda. I'll give the public a moment to find the Q&A feature. All right, our first individual is Robert Stein. I will go ahead and locate him now. Robert, you will be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning.
Thank
Robert,
you.
your microphone is unmuted.
Thank you. I don't think I'll need the 2 minutes. I just want to point out the urgency of the situation with respect to COVID-19 testing, the emergency declarations by the governor. This is a situation that needs to be addressed relatively quickly for it to have any meaning at all. So I'd be concerned about it going through several committees before it actually gets to the board to be able to provide guidance to licensees. Thanks.
All right, Robert, you've been muted again. And we will move on to the next individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Danny Martinez. Danny, I will unmute your microphone. You will be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. At the end of 2 minutes, you will be muted again. Danny, you're
This is Danny
unmuted.
Martinez from the California Pharmacists Association. I fully support this issue being brought to committee. The CPHA has been working on COVID-19 testing for pharmacists for well over a month and a half to 2 months now to try to get this done. We have a world of resources and knowledge for the board to use. So as this item gets agendized in either a committee or the board setting, we would like to be a resource to the board to provide any and all clarity or questions of items that we've learned so far as it relates to COVID testing. So I just want to make that comment.
Thank you, Danny.
All right, Danny has been muted. And we will move on to the next individual who has requested public comment, individual identified as Sai. Sai, you will be given 2 minutes to speak, a 10-second warning, and muted at the end of 2 minutes. Your microphone is now unmuted.
Great, thank you. Thank you for placing my item for future deliberation. I just had a quick clarifying question. My petition, how would you like me to disseminate that to both the board, and I can make it available to the public if needed as well? What's the best route for getting this information to you?
Anne, would you answer that question?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is Ann Sodergren. If you wouldn't mind, please email me the information and I will ensure that it gets placed on an agenda consistent with the action of the board. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's all.
All right, Sai has been muted. And board president, looks like that was the last individual who has requested public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature now?
Yes, please. I wanted to say something to Robert Stein. You had mentioned you were concerned about it going through a number of committees. It won't go through a number. It will only go through one, assuming the motion passes. And we do recognize the urgency. Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Let's move on with our motions. So again, the motion is there's a lot of noise here. Okay, the motion is to direct both of those items to committee, and President, Vice President will determine which committee. We have a motion, we have a second. We've had public comment, so I'm now going to take a vote. I'm going to start with I'm going to start with Ryan Brooks.
I would vote no on this for the standpoint that the urgency of the matter. If this goes to the committee, then the committee will pass it. Then we have to wait for the next board meeting, and by that time, whatever domestic and violence abuse would be, exacerbated. So my vote is no. I would like to send this to the full board for consideration.
Okay, what about on the domestic violence one?
Well, that's the one that's most important.
Okay, so it's not the COVID one you're talking about.
Correct, because we can take months and months before we can get another committee meeting to hear it. And in the interim, we've had, we'll have, exponential amount of cases.
Got it. Thank you, Ryan. Ricardo, vote. Please.
Yeah, I'm here. Aren't we having a board meeting July 8th, I believe? Can we have the committee? Well, we'd have to have the committee here by then, though.
Right.
Actually, I'm gonna go with Ryan here and vote no on it all. So I think the urgency is actually needed. We need to make a decision on it.
Okay. Thank you. Sung, please unmute.
Sorry about that. On both issues, I would actually like to say that we should probably look into it as a full board as soon as possible, not through a committee.
Okay. Maria, well, I know it was your motion, so you would like it to go to committees.
I think to save time, maybe we should rescind the motion and put a new motion on the floor.
Okay. Do you wish to make that motion?
When I hear from, I do need some comment from office staff as to process.
Yeah, so thank you. This is Ann Sodergren. I hope it's okay that I'm jumping in really fast. So the next board meeting scheduled for the board is the end of July. The board does have both licensing and legislation and regulation committee meetings scheduled for July 8 and 9. So there would be opportunity to convene a committee meeting that's already scheduled prior to the board meeting in July. Should the board want to avail itself of that, the other opportunity could be to establish another board meeting if they believe the meeting in the end of July is not soon enough.
So in hearing that information, I'd like to continue the motion as is, stating that it be there is time between the committee meeting and the next board meeting, and just to allow the work be done in committee and then be presented with the board with a complete motion, and saving the time from doing the work at the board meeting that we just reviewed the motion from the committee.
Okay, so thank you. With the additional information, I'm going to ask those who voted if they would like to change their vote. So I'm going back to Ryan.
I vote yes.
Okay. Ricardo.
Yeah, I'll do the same. I'll vote yes.
Okay. And Sung.
I support that as well.
Okay, great. Albert?
Yes.
Good. Debbie? Thank you, Albert. Debbie?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. Jig?
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes. So the motion passes. Thank you. Next item. Next item is the approval of the May 7th, 2020 board meeting minutes. Members, are there any comments on the minutes? If there are no comments, do I hear a motion to approve?
Ryan Brooks, motion to approve.
I'll
Thank you,
second
Ryan.
that.
Is
Ricardo
that
Sanchez
Ricardo?
seconded.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Ryan motion, Ricardo second. Public comment on the minutes. Please open up the lines.
All right, this is the moderator. I will be opening up the Q&A feature now. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon of a question mark within a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. We're sharing instructions on the screen for your reference now. And then as a reminder, if a member of the public would like to participate in public comment, they must enter the WebEx event through the link provided in the agenda. I will pause a moment to allow the public to access the Q&A feature. This is the moderator. Board President, doesn't look like anyone has indicated they would like to make public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature now?
Yes, please. Okay. Having a motion and a second, and given the opportunity for public comment, I'll now take a vote. So this is to approve the minutes of May 7th, 2020. Debbie, may I have your vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ryan? Remember to unmute.
I said yes.
Thank you. Didn't hear you the first time, but thank you. Maria?
Yes.
Thank you. Albert?
Yes.
Thank you. Jig?
Yes.
Thank you. Ricardo?
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Yes.
Thank you. Sung?
Yes.
Thank you. And I am a yes. Motion passes. The minutes are approved. Next agenda item is item 4. Now I'm going to turn the meeting over to the administrative law judge, John DeCure, who will preside over the petition hearing. That's it. I'm now turning it over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, this is Anne Sodergren. As we get started on this portion, I would like to remind you to please turn your cameras on. We will be using the video feature for this portion of the meeting. We do ask that if you need to step away for anything, if you could please turn your camera off so that we know that you have needed to step away for a moment. Thank you for your time and consideration.
All right, good morning. This is Administrative Law Judge John DeCure. And the first thing we need to do is we're off the record right now. We have 3 hearings that are on the agenda, and I'd like if the moderator could tell me, are we going to go in the order that appears on the agenda with Mr. Matavoisin first, Mr. Zanuni second, and Mr. Daher third?
This is the moderator. I unfortunately don't have our first petitioner, Artuin, or their counsel on the call quite yet.
Okay, well, typically what we do if we're in a live hearing and not doing this electronically is we can always deal with it on a first come first served basis because often people travel to the meetings, etc. So if you have a suggestion as to who we can, whose case we can hear first, or if we would just want to go with Mr. Zanuni since he appears second. I think he does.
I do have the other 2 petitioners and their legal counsel on the line.
All right.
So
what I need to know is we haven't yet, I haven't yet opened the record. This is going to be a case heard with a court reporter taking down everything so that we have a legal record. Do we have the court reporter available?
I'll refer to Ann Sodergren with that.
I think I need to ask Deputy Attorney General Jarvis, did the respondents indicate an electronic recording would be acceptable? We do have and have made arrangements for that to occur.
Yes, thank you, Anne. This is Christina Jarvis, Deputy Attorney General. All three petitioners did agree to electronic recording, and the board has agreed to make that available.
All right, so for practical purposes, how are we going to proceed with the electronic recording?
I'm not sure what you mean, Judge. It is currently being recorded. So as soon as you say we're on the record, then that's where that will be the verbal cue that the official recording has started.
Okay, good morning, Ms. Jarvis, by the way.
Good morning.
All right, well, that's good. My previous orientation has been that in a few cases that I have to record, I actually bring my own state of California equipment to do the recording. And I was told that that was not something I was asked to do yesterday. So I'm not upset about that. Thank you very much. All right, so let's talk about, before we go on the record, who is counsel for, we're going to take Mr. Zanini's case first. I think there are two attorneys that were listed in. I only want to have one advocate speaking during the hearing itself.
I have listed Tony Park as the counsel for Mr. Zanuni, so I will go ahead and promote him up to panelist now. And Judge Thakir, if you could please get a little bit closer to your mic. It is a little hard to hear you.
I'm going to turn up my volume.
Okay, thank you.
All right, does this sound better? Excuse me.
Yes, we can hear you a little better. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and promote Tony Park up to a panelist.
Is Christina Jarvis going to be on camera?
Good morning. This is Tony Park. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, so on a clarification, will the video function be on or off?
On.
Oh, I should have comb my hair better. I'm just kidding. So let's
Sorry.
all right. Let's see, how do I start my video? Oh, there I am.
This is the moderator. Looks like you were able to get your video. And then this is the moderator. I will go ahead and promote Mr. Zuni up to a panelist. Mr. Zuni, if you could please unmute your microphone so we can do a quick mic check.
We had Christina here for a minute. Now she's gone. Here she is. Hi. Oh, on again.
Hi, I apologize. I keep hitting the wrong button and turning off my video, but I will try not to touch it.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready to go?
Not quite yet. It looks like I can't hear audio from our petitioner, Mr. Zuni. At the bottom of your WebEx screen, there's a button with a microphone icon that has a slash through it. When it's red, that means you're muted. Oh, and it looks like you unmuted yourself. Can you please do a quick mic check?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great.
And then next to your microphone button, there should be an option to turn on your camera.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, looks like your camera's on.
Great.
All right, Ms. Moderator, do we have all of the participants online?
Moderator, this is Ann Sodergren. Dr. Serpa did lose her connection. When she reconnects, if you could please promote her to a panelist, please.
I got her just back up. So board member Serpa should be back online.
Thank you. I'm here. I got my camera working too. Thank you.
All right, may we proceed?
This is the moderator. I believe all members are online.
Right.
All right. This is Administrative Law Judge John DeCure. Good morning. I'm opening the record in the matter of the petition to seek reinstatement filed by Jamal Zanouni. Agency case number 3749, Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2020-060-389. Today is Thursday, June 18th, 2020, and this matter is being heard telephonically due to the health crisis. And we also have audio feed as well, so we can see the parties and the board members. This is actually appearing before the Board of Pharmacy for determination following the hearing. I'm Administrative Law Judge John DeCure. May I have appearances, please, beginning with Agency Counsel. I'm sorry, you're not representing the agency, the Deputy Attorney General.
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. I am Deputy Attorney General Christina Jarvis, appearing here on behalf of the Attorney General for the people of the state of California. Thank you.
All right, and for the respondent or the petitioner?
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Tony Park, counsel for Mr. Zanouni.
And Mr. Zanouni, if you're online, please state your appearance.
Good morning, Your Honor. Jamal Zanouni, petitioner.
All right, good morning. I'm not going to spend any time taking a roll call of the board members. By my count, there are 9 board members, which is certainly enough for a quorum to hear this matter. That occurred earlier in the Board of Pharmacy's hearing. So at any rate, I am assigned to preside over this matter. And in short, a petition for reinstatement does not involve any sort of relitigation of the underlying acts or misconduct that may have occurred that led to the petitioner's revocation. And the attorneys in any case such as this should know that, but I want the board members to know that as well. This is not an issue that we're going to spend any time on, really. Essentially, those facts have been determined and that revocation occurred. Now, it is a basis for the reinstatement because it's a starting point. And what your focus will be today in all 3 of the cases you're going to hear is rehabilitation. That is going to be left up to the petitioner who has the burden of proving to the board that he, in all 3 cases, we've got gentlemen this morning, that he is rehabilitated and that he is fit for licensure again. And you, I know, have staff counsel that you will confer with later as to whether certain terms and conditions would be applied if you did grant a petition. But the primary focus in these hearings is rehabilitation. We're not going to be looking to relitigate any of the underlying facts or the issues of misconduct. Those are simply a starting point for considering the issue of what each petitioner is being rehabilitated from. So I am assuming that Mr. Zanouni is going to be testifying on his own behalf. We will get to that a little bit later. What I'd like to do first is ask Ms. Jarvis if she is submitting the entire petition. The petition has been made available to me through OAH. I want to make sure the board members have all seen the petition as well. And I understand Ms. Jarvis gave a written response as well, I think, in this case. Ms. Jarvis?
Good morning, Your Honor. Yes, I did submit the entire petition packet. I did not submit a written response of any sort. There is the memorandum that summarizes the petition packet, and then the petition packet itself, which was uploaded as, I don't recall in this case if it was uploaded as one document or in multiple parts. However, that packet in the parts is Exhibit 1, and the only exhibit.
All right, so I'm going to mark, and I will ask Mr. Park later if he has any objections near the end of the hearing, but I'm going to mark Exhibit 1. And actually, Mr. Park, have you seen Exhibit 1? It is, by the way, one electronic file, and there are sub exhibits marked as A through I, but it's one electronic file that I have in front of me. Mr. Park, do you have any objection to the petition in its entirety as Exhibit 1, which has been marked, being received in evidence?
No, Your Honor, I do not.
All right. There being no objection, Exhibit 1 is received. What I would like to do is allow for Ms. Jarvis to essentially describe the petition for rehabilitation. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Ms. Jarvis, but you are serving the interests of the people of the state today, and I typically allow for the DAG, the Deputy AG, to make essentially a presentation first, and then I would go over to the issues of rehabilitation and whatever evidence that the petitioner wants to present on his own behalf.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate that. I would also note that in Exhibit 1 is the underlying decision, default decision and order in this case. So Mr. Park, on behalf of his client, submitted the entire petition packet. We then also attached the default decision and accusation, and that's all included in that Exhibit 1.
All right, Mr. Zanuni, I'm going to ask Mr. Park, does your client intend to testify this morning before the board?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Zanuni does intend to testify, albeit, if it pleases Your Honor, we'd like to present it in a format that is somewhat akin to a direct examination, where I present open-ended questions and kind of guide him through this process, if you don't mind.
That's what I would want you to do. He's not going to be allowed to make a narrative statement, and so it's always much easier when we have counsel. So, Mr. Zanuni, are you in a quiet place where you're not going to be disturbed right now?
Yes.
Okay, is there anybody present with you?
No.
Okay, please raise your right hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, ALJ DeCure, that was not the entirety of my statement. I just wanted to clarify Exhibit 1. I do have an actual description of the case to present.
All right, Mr. Zanuni, keep the door closed, and Mr. Park, be patient. Ms. Jarvis, I'm sorry, go ahead. You can continue.
That's okay. My apologies. For the record, my role here is not adversarial. It is intended to protect the public interest. This matter arose through an accusation filed on May 9th, 2011. The petitioner did not file a notice of defense, and his license was revoked by default on October 18th, 2011. The reasonable costs of investigation and enforcement were found to be $6,851.50. The facts are that on or about February 20th and 21st, 2010, the petitioner was working at a Walgreens pharmacy when he was observed to be under the influence of alcohol or a medication. Petitioner admitted to the Walgreens pharmacy to consuming alcohol before commencing his shift, and also admitted to stealing 10 Norco, hydrocodone/APAP 10 milligrams, from the pharmacy over the previous 2 weeks. Petitioner later stated to a board investigator that he had taken a Vicodin prior to work and might have been a little bit loopy upon arrival. The charges for discipline related to this conduct on these 2 dates are use of a controlled substance in a manner or to an extent to be dangerous to himself or others, filling and dispensing prescriptions while under the influence of a controlled substance, violation of Health and Safety Code sections 11170, 11171, and 11173 subdivision A, which include furnishing and administering a controlled substance to himself and then obtaining that substance by fraud or deceit. Under the Business and Professions Code, there's also a separate cause for discipline for committing acts involving dishonesty or deceit. It sounds duplicative, but one is in the Health and Safety Code and one is in the Business and Professions Code. They're slightly different. Unfortunately, after that, on March 8th, 2010, petitioner was convicted of DUI. This DUI had occurred on August 17th and 2009. The circumstances are that petitioner was in a single vehicle collision with a traffic light and was found with an open bottle of vodka in his vehicle. His blood alcohol content was tested to be 0.41%. That is extremely high. The causes for discipline for this incident were conviction of a crime substantially related to the duties of a pharmacist and the consumption of alcohol to an extent or in a manner to be dangerous to oneself or others. Since the petitioner's license was revoked, he sustained 3 additional convictions. In March 2013, he was convicted of public intoxication and disturbing the peace. In March of 2014, he was convicted of DUI. This next one is a little bit confusing, so bear with me. But in August of 2014, petitioner was convicted of elder abuse and battery. And then in January of 2015, petitioner was charged with public intoxication. Pursuant to petitioner's plea in the August 2014 conviction, that public intoxication was dismissed, and the conviction of elder abuse and battery was later modified after petitioner completed a chemical dependency program to a simply disturbing the peace. In support of his petition today, petitioner has provided continuing education certificates showing 197.25 hours from September of 2017 through July of 2019. Petitioner submitted 5 letters of recommendation, 4 of which were able to be verified by board staff. All of the authors of these letters stated that they were aware of the disciplinary action and feel that petitioner is rehabilitated. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, and also what petitioner will probably be discussing most here today, petitioner did provide documents outlining his sobriety journey, including getting sober after that first DUI and staying sober for 19 months, after which he fell off the wagon and sustained the second DUI, and his new sobriety date in December of 2014, several alcohol use and abuse programs, including a 9-month intensive outpatient program, which he successfully completed, which entitles him to continued therapy and support indefinitely. Petitioner also provided evidence that he attends and continues to attend a significant amount of AA meetings. Exhibit 1 is already in evidence, so this is now petitioner's opportunity to address the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jarvis. That was what I had in mind earlier, so I'm sorry that I almost cut you off from it. That would have been tragic. At any rate, Mr. Park, that was essentially an opening statement by Ms. Jarvis, and I want to give you an opportunity to make a brief opening statement if you like. Typically, opening statements in administrative hearings are for the purposes of letting the administrative judge and also, in this case, the board members know what evidence you intend to present and what you believe it'll show. If you don't think that's useful, you can waive it, but since Ms. Jarvis made a very well-prepared and carefully crafted statement, I want to give you an opportunity to do that as well if you'd like. Mr. Park?
Sorry about that. I had some technical difficulties. My call dropped. So I missed the last third, I believe, of Ms. Jarvis's opening statement, but would you mind repeating what you just said, Your Honor?
Yes. Typically in an administrative hearing, I allow the parties, and the Administrative Procedure Act allows for an opening statement. That was essentially what Ms. Jarvis just gave. It's a description of the evidence you intend to present and what you believe it'll show. And it's something that is optional. Since she made a substantial opening statement there, I want to give you an opportunity if you'd like to make an opening statement on behalf of your client.
Yes, please, I would. Thank you, Your Honor. And I'll be very brief. So I think by all accounts, Dr. Jamal Zununi is undoubtedly a recovering alcoholic. And he has, unfortunately, a well-established arrest record and conviction record for alcohol-related events and incidents in which he, quite frankly, repeatedly demonstrated poor judgment. And I think he'll be the first to admit that now. However, after today's testimony and evidence that we're going to be presenting here shortly, we hope and believe that you will agree with us that in our conviction that Dr. Zunini is not only remorseful for his past, but he is salvageable as a human being and a pharmacist who's actively and successfully undergoing recovery as an alcoholic, and that he will make a positive contribution to the profession of pharmacy. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. So Exhibit 1 has been received and admitted in evidence. That means this is your opportunity to present your evidence, Mr. Park. Are you calling your client as a witness? And if you are, go ahead and do that.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call to testify Dr. Jamal Zunini.
All right, please raise your right hand, Mr. Zunini. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that in the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding, you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I will.
Thank you. Go ahead and start out by stating and spelling your full name for the record.
Jamal Zanuni, JemalZenuni.
All right, Mr. Zanuni, I want to give you a couple of very brief directions that I give to every witness before they testify. This is a formalized question and answer process that works very well in the legal justice system. And how it works is we have direct examination and cross-examination, and there are a few wrinkles to that will be added for sake of this hearing. How this is going to go is Mr. Park is going to first ask you questions, and that will be to bring out the testimony that he believes will be effective for you. If you are answering a question, and let me start over again. I'm sorry, I'm hearing a terrible echo right now. And somebody might have their mic open.
This is the moderator. I'll interject real quick. If you aren't currently speaking, if you could please mute your microphone to prevent any background noise. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The echo is gone. At any rate, you have two advocates in this case, Mr. Zunini, Mr. Park and Ms. Jarvis. And so each time you're being asked a question, the other attorney will be listening very carefully to that question, and they may pose a legal objection at the end of the question. So for you, what I'd like you to do is simply not be in a rush to give your answer. Make sure that you hear the full question, then let about 4 or 5 seconds go by of quiet so that you know that the other attorney has had an opportunity to lodge an objection. If you answer in a hurry, your voice will clash with that attorney's, and we have to stop everything and unwind, and it will take much longer, and it will break up the flow of your testimony. So just wait several seconds before you give your answer.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. If you're asked a question and you don't understand what the question calls for, just let us know, and it will be rephrased so that it's clearer for you. Now, if you're asked a question and you don't know what the answer would be, because it's outside the scope of your knowledge or your past experience, please don't guesstimate or conjure up an answer. That's called speculation, and the board nor I can consider speculation as evidence. So there may be times when the correct answer is, I don't know, and that's perfectly acceptable. So what we'll do is we'll start with Mr. Park asking you questions on direct examination, then we'll get to cross-examination, and I will give you a few brief directions before we start with cross-examination. I will also ask the board, I want to mention to Mr. Lippy right now that in my experience, I typically think it's best if the Deputy Attorney General would be the first person to do cross-examination. And then if the board members have questions of their own, we can devise a way to allow them to come into the question and answer process. I ask you to take a roll perhaps and just go down the list of board members and ask if any of them have questions. But typically I like the Deputy AG to ask her questions first on cross before we get to that. That's
Understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Park, you may proceed with direct examination. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Dr. Zununi, for the board, would you provide a brief background information about yourself, particularly your education and your experience as a pharmacist?
Sure. I graduated from the University of Colorado, Denver in 2005. I had been working as a community pharmacist throughout my career.
Going to the November 11, 2011 default judgment, if you could kind of bring your focus on that. When you received your accusation, well, first of all, had you received the accusation through the mail and through certified mail?
I had, yes.
Okay. And yet you failed to file a formal notice of defense or make any attempt to defend yourself. Could you explain why?
At that time, I just felt paralyzed. I'd never been in trouble with the law. I just felt so much shame and guilt. I couldn't bring myself to face the board at that time.
And so did you realize that by not responding, you would lose your license as a pharmacist, or there was a great chance of losing your license as a pharmacist?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Zununi, do you consider yourself to be an alcoholic?
Yes.
And how long have you been sober?
5.5 years, since December 2014.
Okay. And going back to your first driving under the influence, your DUI conviction that occurred on March 8th, your arrest occurred on March 17th, that led to the conviction ultimately on March 8, 2010. Could you explain the circumstances on why you decided to drink and drive that day?
Okay, so during that time, around 2008, I was going through a lot of major life events. My grandfather had died from throat cancer. He pretty much raised me, so that was very hurtful. At the same time, coincidentally, my best friend Vanessa lost herself to mental illness. She has a family history of mental illness. She was hospitalized a lot, and she just disappeared out of everyone's life, and we still can't get a hold of her. Leading up to the DUI, I was heading to an ex's house to make amends after a falling out, and I foolishly consumed an excess of vodka before leaving, and I ended up getting a DUI at that point.
So is it a fair characterization to say that at that time you just didn't know how to cope?
Exactly. I didn't really have any coping skills. I'd never been to AA, so my coping skill was drinking.
And do you recognize that fully now, that your crutch, if you will, is alcohol?
Yes.
Before that first DUI, when you were pulled over on August 17, 2009, had you ever heavily drank before that incident?
Just maybe like 6 months before, when my grandfather died and my friend disappeared. Before that, I was just a social drinker in my 20s.
So, speaking of continuing on that first DUI, with regards to the, so you were arrested and then charged with a DUI on March 8, 2010. With regards to the facts and circumstances that of the kind of the complicated scenario where you had a disturbing the peace with a elder abuse charge. Can you kind of explain what that was about? That seems a little bit unusual.
Yeah, so obviously it wasn't elder abuse. My grandmother and I had a verbal argument. I was unemployed at the time. I was trying to ask her for money to take a cab to see my brother, who was in the hospital because he had a seizure. She said no, and we kind of exchanged words verbally. So she told me that her heart was racing, and she called her doctor. Her doctor ended up calling the police for a welfare check. And I don't know what happened in the room with the police because I wasn't there, but they ended up arresting me at that point and charged me with elder abuse. It later got dropped to disturbing the peace because she retracted all her comments.
Were you living with your grandmother at the time?
At that time, yeah, I was living with my parents, who also had, my grandmother was in the house as well. Yeah, my parents were in Europe.
So, was there any alcohol involved in that series of events?
A little bit, yes.
Would you consider yourself acting under the influence of alcohol during that event?
Since I did drink, yes.
And going to the most recent charge in January 2015, the charge of public intoxication, which was ultimately dismissed. What happened there?
So I guess I just had the overwhelming feelings of shame and guilt, just bringing up thoughts through the rehab. You know, when you go to rehab, you kind of have to just divulge everything. Those feelings came up, shame and guilt took over. I had 2 sips of beer in the park on my house because I didn't want to drink in the house. I guess somebody had called the police for whatever reason. They ended up arresting me based on my previous history. And I guess at that time something clicked and I just realized I hit rock bottom. I had too many arrests, too many relapses, and sitting in that jail cell, I just decided I wanted to turn my life around. That I really wanted my career back that I worked so hard for. And the only way to do that was to stop drinking. And my last drink was December 2014.
So so is it safe to say that every single one of your run-ins with the law involved alcohol?
All of them, yeah.
So let's talk about your various recovery efforts, and I think it's safe to say that you've experienced a lot of recovery efforts and have gone through a lot of programs. Let's start with the one at the Lake Arrowhead Treatment Center for Alcohol and Substance Abuse and Addiction, which, according to the record, it appears that you attended that from November 2011 through January 2012. Can you describe that program and what you did there?
Sure. It was a residential inpatient, well, I guess a residential program. So it was pretty much a lockdown. We were just living in a house. We were under constant supervision. So it consisted of several daily group sessions, individualized psychotherapy from a psychiatrist, one-on-one counseling every day, random drug testing, and daily AA meetings. Every day we were there. So.
And would you actually had completed the program on specifically, it looks like January 27, 2012. Did you feel pretty good about your prospects at that point as a recovering alcoholic?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. At that point, yes.
At that point. And yet about 1.5 years had gone by, with no event to note. And around August of 2013, you were arrested for another DUI. What happened there?
So, yes, I did have about 1 year and 9 months of sobriety under my belt. At that point, I was trying to meet a friend at the Hollywood Bowl that I hadn't seen for several years. I was very anxious and nervous. And, I just decided to drink. I had all the tools I learned from Lake Arrowhead Center, but I foolishly, consciously decided not to use them. I can't reconcile why I did it. It was just, I can't.
Was the meeting, sorry, Dr. Zanini, was the meeting for a romantic prospect? Is that why you were so nervous?
No.
Oh, it wasn't? Oh, my apologies. You just, so about 1 year and 9 months, according to your recollection had passed, and you drank and you got another DUI. So what happened to all the learning and the experience and the training from the Lake Arrowhead Treatment Center?
Yeah, that's a good question. I foolishly decided not to use them for whatever reason. At that particular point, I had stopped going to AAs. I didn't have a support group. So I just thought I had it. I was able to not drink and not have any support group, but I was wrong, obviously. So, I mean, like I said, I had the tools that I learned from Lake Arrowhead Center, but I foolishly made a conscious decision not to use them. And unfortunately, that led to another DUI.
So after you had completed the Lake Arrowhead Treatment Center for Alcohol and Substance Abuse and Addiction, you from you kind of, it looks like, it appears, and correct me if I'm mistaken, that on or around May 2014 through April 2015, you enrolled in another treatment program called the Macmillan Center Outpatient Program for Alcohol and Drug Treatment. Could you describe what that was about?
Sure. This is following my second DUI, as you stated. So this is a 9-month outpatient program. It was divided into 3 phases. The intensive phase was 5 days a week for 2 months. The second phase was the transitional period. That came down to 4 days a week for 6 weeks. And then another phase 3 was the continuous care, which lasted for 6 months. So at that time, I still had one-on-one primary counselor meetings weekly. I was drug and alcohol tested once or twice a week. I was required to go to AA 2 to 3 times a week, which I was doing anyway. And because I graduated and completed the program, and I have access to continued therapy and support indefinitely as an alumnus, so I still utilize that. I still take advantage of that opportunity.
So the timing of this the Macmillan Center program, it covers from May 2014 through April 2015, which you were actively participating, and yet kind of in the middle of it, almost exactly in the middle of it, as a matter of fact, January 2015 was the incident of the public intoxication. How do you reconcile the fact that while you were in a rehabilitation program, in the middle of it, you decided to have a drink? Describe that. How can you reconcile that, or how do you explain that?
I can partially reconcile it. Going through these programs, you bring up stuff that you try to forget, and those incidences that occurred beforehand kind of just brought up, more feelings of shame and guilt of what I did before. And for whatever reason, I just decided to have a drink in the park because I was just feeling so guilty and shameful of what I did. Like I said, I'd never gone through anything like this before, been in trouble with the law. So I can't really reconcile it. It was just an extreme, major lapse of judgment.
So your personal belief and understanding of the circumstances where cracking open that beer, was it that you were drinking in the park?
Right.
In January 2015, are you telling the Board of Pharmacy that something about that incident was different than others?
Yeah.
Could you go more into that, please?
Yeah. Like I said, at that point I had too many relapses, too many arrests, and I just said, this is not me. I decided to turn my life around and, decided I want my career back. And that was just something clicked, and I just realized that was rock bottom for me. I really had to change my life and turn my life around, and I have.
Have you had any even a drop of alcohol since January 2015?
December 2014.
Yes.
That's okay. No, I have not.
And I'm assuming that everybody's social, and we go out every once in a while and have a glass of wine or a beer or whatever. Do you find yourself in opportunities like that anymore?
I actually no, I don't go out anymore. I don't never go to a bar. I don't really even go out to do anything. I kind of just stay homebound. Not because I don't trust myself, but that's just the way I am.
The type of people that you were hanging out with before that may have had some influence, minor or not, compared to the people you hang out with now. Could you speak to your circle of friends and on that?
Sure. Yes. So my friends that I used to hang out with before, mostly in San Diego. I eliminated them out of my life. They were enablers. I just don't even keep contact with them anymore. So now I have a support group of friends who are sober. You know, don't drink. I mean, we have fun together without even having to drink at all. So.
Just 1 minute, Dr. Zuni. I'm sorry, but whoever is shuffling paper, would you mind muting your microphone, please? Thank you. So with regards to your circle of friends, you're essentially, what happened to all those friends that you were hanging out before with whom you were drinking?
I don't contact them anymore.
So how many friends do you have now?
Very few.
Let's talk about your work history. So obviously, when you lost your license as a pharmacist, you were no longer work at Walgreens or any other pharmacy. What did you do to work and support yourself?
Well, for the first couple of years, I didn't work. After my revocation, I was just going through a lot of depression. I was trying to look for work. Unfortunately, all the places I applied to said I was overqualified. So eventually I found a job at Sprouts Farmers Market. So I was grateful to finally find a job after several years. I worked modestly as a cashier there. Then I went through the Selma McMillan outpatient program for 9 months. And after that, I found a job with a publisher called RX Prep. And it was a 3-month temporary contract position. So RX Prep is a study guide for students preparing for the NAPLEX. Over there, I formatted and edited half of the 2016 course book. I also fact-checked drug information using sources like Daily Med and Lexicon. I created test sample questions for the online test bank. And after that 3-month period, based on my performance, my employer offered me a full-time position to go around the country as a lecturer. At that time, I didn't feel qualified or comfortable doing that because I didn't have an active pharmacist license. And she notified me that you don't need a license to do this kind of work, but I still respectfully declined the position out of principle.
And so to be clear, you had this opportunity to be a lecturer for the RX Prep course program, and you declined because in your mind, you thought you needed to be a pharmacist. Is that correct?
No, I know I didn't need to be a pharmacist. Have an active pharmacist license because my employer told me that because I wasn't practicing pharmacy. But in my mind, I didn't feel comfortable teaching pharmacy students around the country when I didn't have an active license. So that was my own decision to not take that position.
If you had an active license, if the board were to grant your reinstatement as an active pharmacist again in California, would you consider doing something like this in your future career?
Absolutely.
Did you enjoy teaching?
Well, I never taught. I was actually just
my apologies. Yes, you're correct. You only edited.
Yeah, I was an editor.
How would you feel about sharing your negative experience and your process and journey through sobriety? How would you feel about sharing that with pharmacy students and other healthcare professionals?
My own experience? Yeah, I would be open to that. I would look forward to that opportunity should the board ask me of that.
Currently, where do you work?
I work at Stein Optometric Center, which is an optometry office, and I'm the assistant office manager there currently.
And as assistant office manager, what is it that you do on a regular basis?
I oversee the work of over a dozen employees. I'm also the primary trainer for every new hire, teaching them the ways of the office and the computer program.
Okay. And How much do you get paid?
$20 an hour.
$20 an hour, and that roughly equals what salary per year, approximately? Would you say?
Approximately 40,000.
40,000 a year. In all the prior times you were living with your parents, did you say, or your grandmother?
Well, yeah, right after my revocation, I pretty much lost my house. I lost my car, everything. I lost everything. So I pretty much just left San Diego and traveled up to the South Bay here in Torrance.
Okay. Where do you live now?
I live in Torrance.
By yourself or with somebody, or?
I live with my brother.
Okay, you live with family. Okay. Let's talk about your continuing education. Close to 200 hours from the time period of approximately July 2017 through July 2019. Why did you take so many CEs?
Because I couldn't work in a pharmacy or step foot in a pharmacy for that matter. I had to keep up to date with current pharmacy literature and news. So I did that for myself, for my own, I needed to keep up to date with the most current information. I also wanted to prove to the board that I'm 100% serious about the profession of pharmacy and educating the public about their optimizing their drug therapy.
And so, again, if you were to be reinstated as a pharmacist, do you feel that you are competent enough to be able to practice pharmacy in whatever practice setting?
I definitely do, yes.
Okay. Let's talk about next your letters of recommendation. Who is Sarah Popish?
Sarah Popish is a former, well, we went to school together. We still keep in close contact together. Currently, she's the National Clinic Program Manager for the VA. She works in mental health. We've known each other for about 15 years or so.
And did you talk? And did you speak openly and bluntly about your situation with the Board of Pharmacy with her?
Yes.
Yeah. Who is Lysandra Barreto?
She is a former coworker. She's a pharmacy technician. We worked at Rite Aid together in downtown San Diego. So we've known each other for, I would say, probably 15 years also.
A long time. And
Yeah,
have you spoken with her about your licensure status and your desire to get back in as a pharmacist?
Yes.
Yes. And Shelley Solfrian, who is she?
She's a really close friend of mine. We take a lot of vacations together. She's a nuclear pharmacist with Cardinal in Denver, Colorado. We went to school together, graduated together. So we still keep in close contact, and she's aware of everything that's happened as well.
And Vince Oliver?
Vince Oliver is a very close friend also. We've known each other for about 20 years. We were in a percussion ensemble and traveled the U.S. and around Europe. And he's aware also of everything that has taken place.
And lastly, Jose Rincon.
Jose Rincon, we went to high school together, so we've known each other for about 25 years. And he's the director of library services at Marymount, California University.
Okay.
And we talk almost daily, so we're very close.
So of all the letters of recommendation, you would characterize your relationship as far more than just acquaintances, correct?
Of course. Yeah.
You consider them friends, close friends, maybe.
Close friends, yeah.
Okay. And every single one of them fully understood. Maybe it sounds like did you actually tell them about the accusation and the revocation and all that, correct?
Correct.
Let's talk about your involvement with AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Are you currently a member?
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been attending AA meetings?
Right after my first DUI in 2000, 9.
And currently, how often do you attend AA meetings these days?
At least once or twice a week. I have a home group also on Saturday nights. I'm also involved with the McMillan Center, where I can go anytime I want on Wednesday mornings, should my schedule permit, if I'm not scheduled for work.
And so within the last several months, how often have you been going to the Macmillan Wednesday morning meetings?
I went once this month so far.
Okay.
Because I had to work. So.
Yeah. So aside from the Macmillan program and AA, do you attend any other programs at all?
Not currently, no, just those two, or read those programs, yeah.
Regarding AA, what do you think you gain from attending the meetings, and do you think it helps you towards the road towards recovery, and why?
It does. It keeps me, grounded. Hearing other people's stories, sharing my story, taking commitments at meetings, greeting, setting up. It's just it feels like a community where where I feel comfortable in.
And do you feel comfortable attending these meetings on a regular basis?
I do. I didn't at first, but now I'm very comfortable. Yeah.
And is it your intention to continue going to these meetings in the future?
Yeah, indefinitely.
So wait, so how long do you think? Do you think there's an end date after which you don't need to go to these meetings anymore?
No, there's no end date. I'll keep going forever.
For the rest of your life?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when was that last drink for any reason whatsoever?
December 2014.
And have you ever been tempted since then to drink again?
Not really. No, I kind of just put that life behind me. I mean, that's not who I was. I never was a heavy drinker, early in my life. It just happened over circumstances and then just escalated over that. And then within maybe like that small 5-year period where I was heavily drinking, that's all behind me now. I don't want to revert back to that life anymore.
Okay. During this entire road to sobriety, road to recovery, if you will, because you're not really ever cured, if you will, of alcoholism. Did you ever, at any point, just think, "Why am I even trying? Why bother? I don't want to be a pharmacist anymore." Did you have any of those thoughts at any time?
There was a time where I gave up hope. You know, foolishly, like just thought there was no chance of getting my license back because of the things I had done. But I feel like I'm fully rehabilitated, and I think I deserve a second chance at this point.
Why do you want to be a pharmacist so badly? It sounds like you jumped through an awful lot of hoops to get here.
Yeah, I did a lot that I didn't have to do, but I want to help people get better. A lot of people rely on medicine to do that. I enjoy educating and counseling patients and the public and having one-on-one conversations to optimize their drug therapy. I love serving the public and the community, and I'm really eager and excited to hopefully get my license restored.
Do you honestly believe that you are capable of performing as an effective pharmacist and also positively contributing to the health, safety, and welfare of Californians?
100%. I've been working very hard to get to this point.
And are you willing to allow yourself to be used by the board and others as an example of other as an example for other pharmacists and future pharmacists, if that would be beneficial to the recipients of the information?
Of course. Yeah, I would absolutely be open to that. I would actually look forward to doing that if the board would ask.
In other words, would you be willing to be essentially like a poster boy of a cautionary tale of what not to do? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Will you drink any alcoholic drinks in the future?
Never. It destroyed my life, so I'm never going to do that ever again, or no.
Thank you, Dr. Zuzuni. Your Honor, I have nothing further at this time.
All right, this is Judge DeCure. It is 10:33 in the morning, and I want to ask President Lippy if this is a good time to take a recess. I think probably.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think people will feel better and clearer minds once we get into cross-examination. So let's go off the record. And how long would you like the recess to be? 10 or 15 minutes?
Let's make it 15.
All right, thank you. We're off the record.
Thank you. Veal.
Present.
Thank you. Brian Brooks.
Here, I'm here.
Maria Serpa.
Here.
Albert Wong.
Yeah, here.
Thank you. Jig Patel.
Here.
Ricardo Sanchez.
Here.
Thank you. Cheryl.
Here.
Thank you. Sung.
Here.
Great. I'm here too. Okay, we're all here.
All right, this is Judge DeCure. We are back on the record. The witness, the petitioner, is still testifying under oath, and now I'm going to turn it over for cross-examination by Ms. Jarvis. Before I have Ms. Jarvis start asking her questions, I just want our witness, Mr. Zanuni, to know that this is a little bit different in that your attorney asked you a number of questions on direct that were open-ended, which allowed for you to give a narrative essentially of your own making as to how to answer each question. Cross-examination allows for very specific questions to be asked. Sometimes they are closed-end questions, meaning that the question asks you for a yes or a no answer and nothing more. It's not your time when you're answering questions on cross to be expansive and go beyond the scope of the question. The best way I can describe this for you is to simply listen to each question alone and answer that question. When you're done, wait for the next question. If you do that, you'll be fine. If your counsel decides that he wants you to expand on something or explain something further that comes out on cross, he'll have an opportunity to do that with you on redirect. But right now, the focus you want to have is on simply listening to each question, answering the question, and then waiting for the next one. All right, are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Jarvis, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Zanuni, I want to drill down a little bit on your sobriety date. You keep saying December 2014 and not giving us a specific day. Do you know the specific day that you had your last drink?
Let me check.
And what are you referring to?
The packet that was sent to me by the Board of Pharmacy indicating the arrest date, and that would be December 18th, 2014.
So in my experience with people in your shoes, petitioners and respondents, they frequently have a specific date that they may even celebrate, like a birthday every year. You do not do that?
I do. It's usually just at the beginning of the month of December at my home group.
I see. So let's see. In your home group for AA, is that what you're referring to?
Correct.
You have mentioned attending AA meetings, but you have not mentioned your involvement with those meetings. Have you taken any kind of leadership role in your home group?
Not leadership, but I do have commitment time to time.
What does that mean?
So either being a greeter at the front door or setting up the meeting.
Do you have somebody that you've identified as a sponsor?
I did, but he moved.
I see. When was that?
About 6 months ago.
And have you sponsored anybody else?
I have not.
And why is that? Why have you not taken the leadership or taken the responsibility of sponsoring another individual?
All right, this is Judge Secure. Stop, please. I'm going to sustain my own objection. Counsel, I want you to just ask one question at a time, please. Go ahead. That was a compound question.
Dr. Zanouni, so why have you not stepped up to a leadership role in your home group?
Well, I have taken commitments, but in terms of leadership, there's not really much leadership to do there. I mean, it's just a group where we just discuss our own situations and just share with the group.
Why have you not stepped up to sponsor somebody who may be new to sobriety?
Honestly, I just don't really have the time. I'm working a lot. I mean, I would like to sometime in the future, but right now I work a lot of hours. So.
And have you worked the 12 steps through your home group?
Yeah, and I haven't gone through all the 12 yet. I'm still in step 4.
What is that step?
Making amends to those individuals you have hurt.
And why are you still in this step?
Because it's a very long list of people that I've hurt in the past and need to still come in contact with.
Now, you were revoked by default approximately, 8 years or so ago. Do you feel competent to practice pharmacy today after such an extended break from practice?
I do. I've taken extensive continuing education courses. I'm still constantly, almost daily, reading up on pharmacy literature. Even after 5 years after my revocation, I was able to get a job through a knowledge-based application through RxPrep, in which I was, there's only 2 positions open, and I was chosen to take that position.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
All right, is there any redirect from Mr. Park before we go to board member questions, if there are any? Mr. Park?
None, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. President, I'm going to allow you to go one by one through the list of board members and ask if there are any questions of them that they have for the respondent.
Thank you. Ryan Brooks.
No questions, Mr. President.
Thank you. Maria Serpa.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Albert Wong.
Yes, I have a question. Mr. Jamal, to me, you commit the worst violation that you can commit as a pharmacist. And, working with the DUI and under the influence of drugs, you put the health and safety of our consumer at the highest risk. So I hope you understand that. So my question to you is that how you have many relapses. Well, my question is that how you will prevent that in the future for relapse if we give you back the license?
Right. You're correct. I do have a history of alcohol-related incidences. I've been sober for 5.5 years. That's the longest time I've, ever had a drink. So in terms of going forward, I still am actively going to AAs at least once or twice a week. And I still have my support group through McMillan Recovery Center, in which I have support indefinitely. I can go there whenever I choose. I'm an alumnus, so I can still utilize and take advantage of that program. And like I said, I have so much shame and guilt about what I did. I would never do anything like that again. Like I said, that's not me. Going forward, I would definitely, I've taken a long time to reflect about what I did. I'm extremely regretful and remorseful about what I did. Alcohol destroyed my life. So going forward, I mean, I plan to be 100% sober going forward.
Okay. No further question. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Jig Patel.
No questions.
Okay. Cheryl Butler.
No questions.
Thank you. Ricardo Sanchez.
Mr. Sununi, I'd like to first commend you on your 5.5 years of sobriety and wish you luck on your journey. I know it's a difficult one, and wish you the best of luck. And thank you for coming before us and actually speaking to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the moderator. I just want to interject real quick. Our public affairs person had their webcast signal drop. Could we pause for one moment just to let them reconnect?
Sure. Let's go ahead. Okay, so Debbie Veal is the last one that I have not asked. If you would like to ask a question.
Yeah, I have just one or two. First off, Dr. Zanini, I agree. Congratulations on your sobriety and dealing with your issue and hopefully getting it behind you here. My couple questions. Number one is, so you had a public intoxication in December of 2014, and yet 4 months later, Macmillan graduated you from their program. Did I understand that correctly?
I believe I graduated in May of 2015. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, I mean, did they say? I mean, that seems like kind of close to graduation that you had your you kind of fell off the wagon. Is that? Were you surprised that they graduated you?
No, because the whole point of the program is just to guide us through, they knew, like, a lot of people relapse throughout the program. I'm not saying that's an excuse for why I did, but they're very understanding. And they knew that if I was an alumnus, I would, be able to come back as often as I like. They're there as counselors, really. So they understand, like, what a lot of people go through. So
okay.
I wasn't surprised, but I'm glad they did. I mean, because now I can still have that, I can still take advantage of the program as often as I like.
Yeah. And when you talk about your home AA group, are you always going to the same one?
Yes.
Is it by any chance the healthcare workers, or is it just kind of a not?
It's not. It's a Saturday night meeting. It's the only one I found that I fit into. I tried numerous AA meetings that I just didn't care for, but this one I'm sticking to because I like the format, the people there.
That's great, because I know that we hear from others who are challenged with going to AA or NA meetings, and that's key that you want to go, because that kind of helps the whole thing. Do you still have any relationship with the RX expert group? Do you talk to them?
Sorry.
Okay.
No, it was only a 3-month temporary contract position, so I don't at this moment.
Okay. Well, once again, congratulations on your sobriety, and thanks for coming before us here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, well, those are the last questions. I'll turn it back to the judge.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you.
So I'm going to get back to the attorneys briefly. Mr. Park, do you have any redirect following the recross or the cross that just occurred?
No, Your Honor, I do not.
All right. Is there any recross that you'd like to make, Ms. Jarvis?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Then the witness is excused. Mr. Park, you still have the floor. Do you have any additional evidence to present on behalf of Mr. Zunini? Mr. Park?
Okay, now I'm on. If I may, if it's okay, Your Honor, may I make a brief closing statement?
I'm still trying to determine if you're putting on evidence. We're not to that point yet. We're almost there.
No further evidence. No, nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. And by the way, we are back on the record. We had to have a brief recess earlier, and I want to make sure we're on the record. At any rate, the Deputy Attorney General may actually present rebuttal in a petition such as this. And so I want to ask Ms. Jarvis if you have any rebuttal evidence.
I do not, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. So both parties have presented their evidence. Getting to what Mr. Park was talking about a minute ago, I would like both parties at this point to make their closing remarks, but keep in mind that the board has 2 other hearings today. I would ask you that to be, I think, most effective, you refrain from reiterating the evidence. You can certainly summarize briefly if you want to make points, but the petitions, as you know, are already before the board members. The evidence has been received. For the most part, all of the petitioners' evidence was admitted and received essentially on the record without objection. So I'd like the parties to take maybe 3 minutes per party, 5 minutes at the most, to make their closing remarks. Let's begin with the petitioner. Go ahead, Mr. Park.
This is the moderator. Mr. Park, you're currently muted.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Your Honor. So if you can hear me, hopefully you can hear me. So I believe that the testimony and evidence presented today, we hope that the board agrees with us that Dr. Zunini is sober, ready, and capable of being an excellent pharmacist to serve the pharmacy interests of California. But we do fully realize that this petition for the full reinstatement of licensure as a pharmacist is no small ask, and it's quite a large one, quite frankly, and that the agency must do what it believes necessary to fulfill its mandate to protect Californians. And so to this end, we are open and amenable to continued agency oversight authority in the form of a probation if the board pleases, to the extent that the board feels necessary to reestablish confidence in Dr. Zunini as a pharmacist. We do ask, however, that you consider Dr. Zunini's current job out of pharmacy, in that he only makes $20 an hour, and to the extent that the board feels it necessary to place Dr. Zunini under some sort of a formal recovery program of sorts, we would respectfully ask that the board take into consideration Mr. Zunini's limited financial resources at this time. Thank you very much. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Park. Ms. Jarvis, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. For the board's consideration, it does appear today that Dr. Zunini has presented significant sobriety. He appears quite sincere in his presentation. I am concerned that he's only on step 4. I am also concerned that we really have not addressed the fact that he actually took some of those pills from the pharmacy where he was working. I understand it was part of his alcoholism, but he really hasn't addressed that here today. So I do agree with Mr. Park, or Dr. Park, that if Dr. Zunini were to be granted his license back, he would have to have significant probation terms, including all of the controlled substance and alcohol terms and conditions of probation. Thank you.
Judge, this is Board Member Veal. Could I ask one question of Dag Jarvis?
Judge, you're muted.
All right, I don't know what the basis of the question would be. Since you're going to be deliberating over the matter and you're going to do that privately, the best thing I can tell you right now is that if this is a deliberative question, I would think that it is not appropriate. So I hate to say to any board member, don't ask a question of the deputy AG, but I can't imagine asking a question of of the deputy AG after her closing essentially argument that might not lead into the issue of how you are going to decide this case, and that's private. So it's a long answer, but I think it's probably not advisable, especially on the record. All right. I'm sorry. I thought I'd hear back from that board member.
Well, I was going to mute myself because it sounds like pretty much the answer is no, I can't answer a question. So
Yeah, I think it's.
It has nothing, it all has to do with the very beginning about the fees. I was going to ask if they've been.
Yeah, I think you have everything from Ms. Jarvis at this point, and I would just suggest that we not get into clarifications right after closing argument. The evidence has been presented from both sides. They've had more than enough time to do it. So I'm going to stick with my answer. This is probably not the right time to ask a question about the evidence. At any rate, you also have counsel for the agency that's going to be part of your deliberations. And so you can table that question for that person who I'm sure will know the evidence that's been presented pretty well. All right, let me go back to the conclusion. Well, we're really at the end of the petition hearing in the matter. The case has been submitted by both parties. I've heard closing argument, as has the board, and so the record is closed. We are now off the record in this matter and will proceed to the next petition. Thank you very much, Mr. Park, and Mr. Zanuni, good luck to you. We're off the record.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, this is the moderator. I would like to ask Judge DeCure which petitioner should we go to next?
Well, I know one of the petitioners came in with a WebEx process third, and so I think whoever was second, just out of fairness, should be able to present their case.
In that case, it's going to be Albert Daher, who I will go ahead and promote up to a panelist. Albert, you're now a panelist. If you could please turn on your camera and unmute your microphone to do a quick mic check.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. Oh, it looks like you are speaking, but now I can't hear you.
Okay, so because I'm talking to the phone, basically, right?
Yeah, I can hear you now. And you muted yourself, so. You want to unmute yourself on the computer?
Okay, I'm okay now.
Okay, and I believe the counsel is also Tony Park, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are we ready to go?
This is the moderator. I believe so.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Judge DeCure. Good morning. I'm opening the record in the matter of Albert Daher's petition for reinstatement to the practice of pharmacy. This matter is coming before the Board of Pharmacy. Case number is 3482. The Office of Administrative Hearings case number is 2020-060-358. Today is Thursday, June 18th, 2020, and I'm Administrative Law Judge John DeCure. We are doing this hearing before the Board of Pharmacy electronically via telephone and audio visual aid. May I have appearances, please, beginning with the Deputy Attorney General?
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. Deputy Attorney General Christina Jarvis. appearing on behalf of the Attorney General for the people of the state of California.
Good morning. Counsel?
Thank you again, Your Honor. This is Tony Park, appearing on behalf of petitioner Mr. Daher.
All right, Mr. Daher, could you state your presence?
I'm here.
All right, state your name.
My name is Albert Daher.
All right, thank you very much. The first thing I'd like to do is get to the petition. Before we get to opening remarks, I'm going to allow for Ms. Jarvis to describe the petition, and I will mark it. I do have a copy of the electronic petition, and I believe it was broken into 4 parts for this case, and it had been pre-filed with the Office of Administrative Hearings. But go ahead, Ms. Jarvis.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, Exhibit 1 is the petition packet submitted electronically to OAH, which includes the notice of petition hearing for today, the acknowledgement of electronic recording, the petition and attachments submitted by petitioner or his counsel, and then the decision in case number 3482, which was the original revocation case, also the decision in case number 5585, which was a statement of issues case for this petitioner for a pharmacy technician application, and also the previous petition hearing decision, which is actually unsigned, in case number 6209 from Dr. Daher's previous appearance here before the board, which I believe was in 2017. So I'd like that entirety of those 4 parts to be admitted as Exhibit 1.
All right, is there any objection to Exhibit 1 being received and admitted in evidence?
None, Your Honor.
All right, there being no objection, Exhibit 1 is admitted. Ms. Jarvis, I'm guessing this is your only evidence you intend to submit, so are you ready to make an opening statement?
It is, Your Honor, and I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And for the record, my role here is not adversarial, but it is intended to protect the public interest. This is an extensive matter, as you can see from the 3 cases that I just discussed are in the Exhibit 1 packet. So I'll try to make it as brief as possible with the assumption that the board members have in fact reviewed those decisions. However, for the public and for the record, this matter arose through an accusation against petitioner as the owner and pharmacist in charge, PIC, of pharmacy J. Scott Drugs. That's JAYSCOTT Drugs. This was a 28-page first amended accusation involving approximately 20 patients and 2 prescribers. It should be noted when anyone is reviewing that accusation that the board's investigation focused only on these 2 prescribers due to the voluminous evidence developed from just these 2 alone. Let's see. After the first amended accusation, there was a hearing. That hearing was actually approximately 15 days long, after which there was a 47-page decision after non-adoption of the proposed decision, which revoked respondent petitioner's license. The public may also refer to these documents through the Department of Consumer Affairs BREEZE, BREEZE.ca.gov website. Petitioner is here today requesting the reinstatement of his pharmacist license only. The causes for discipline that led to petitioner's revocation are that he excessively dispensed controlled substances to approximately 20 named patients in violation of pharmacy law, in some cases leading to patient deaths or the exacerbation of drug addictions. Petitioner refilled prescriptions without prescriber authorization, failed to review drug therapies and patient medication records, failed to exercise his professional judgment, failed to review patient profiles prior to dispensing prescriptions, and committed unprofessional conduct. At that hearing, petitioner denied all allegations and asked for the accusation to be dismissed. In March and April of 2008, 7 patients of prescriber Dr. Bass died of drug overdoses. 5 of those patients had filled their prescriptions at petitioner's pharmacy. The vast majority of prescriptions issued by Dr. Bass, including prescriptions for these 5 deceased patients, were substantially identical. At one point, petitioner personally provided a 22-year-old patient with two 10-day supplies or 250 tablets of hydrocodone AP 10s within a 4-day period. Just over a year later, this patient died of a hydrocodone overdose with an empty bottle of the same strength of hydrocodone, a 10-day supply, next to his bed that had been filled only 2 days earlier by this petitioner. In response to the deceased patient's parents' complaint that petitioner had excessively dispensed the drug, petitioner stated, quote, "We regret his death, but the patient is responsible for his own actions. Were his parents aware of his drug addiction? Did they do anything about it?" Another outstanding fact involved 3 adult members of the same family, 2 parents and an adult child, where one of the parents worked for Dr. Bass. These patients, in an 18-month period, all received identical prescriptions from Dr. Bass, and petitioner dispensed approximately 9,000 Norco pills, 1,960 OxyContin pills, 1,230 alprazolam pills, 480 diazepam pills, and 2,765 carisoprodol pills to this family. In regards to the extensive legal and due process that petitioner has received in this matter, the first amended accusation was filed on February 21st, 2012. As I stated, 15 days of hearing were held on various dates from October of 2012 through June of 2013, after which written arguments were submitted to the court by both parties. A proposed decision was rendered. I should note also that petitioner was represented through that proceeding, but not by his current counsel. A proposed decision was rendered, which the board non-adopted, and after another opportunity for the parties to present written argument, the board issued a decision after non-adoption on December 27th, 2013. On February 23rd, 2015, petitioner filed an application for a pharmacy technician registration with the stated intent of reestablishing himself in the pharmacy world prior to reobtaining his pharmacist license. A 1-day hearing was held and a proposed decision was rendered, which the board non-adopted and issued a decision after non-adoption on December 16th, 2016, denying petitioner's application. On September 28th, 2017, petitioner appeared before the board, requesting reinstatement to his pharmacist license, just as he does here today, and that petition was denied. Now, in support of his petition today, petitioner has paid the full cost recovery amount ordered, which was approximately half of the costs actually incurred by the board for prosecution and investigation in this matter. That amount was $57,595.50. And again, that is paid in full at this time. Petitioner has submitted continuing education certificates showing 91.25 hours from January of 2018 through January of 2020. Petitioner also provided 39 letters of recommendation, 10 of which were verified by board staff. In respondent's written explanation to questions in the petition, he states that he has now reflected upon and realized the shortcomings he showed as a pharmacist, and he regrets not only falling short and failing to do more, but also the comments that he made about what happened and those that suffered. I would like to note for the record that petitioner is appearing here today on video, and in that video, he appears to be wearing a pharmacist jacket as well. And I think that that's important for the record to reflect. But at this point, thank goodness, it is now petitioner's opportunity to address the board.
All right, Mr. Park, you may make your opening remarks. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I had a formal typed opening statement, but I'm going to ditch it just because I feel like Mr. Daher's journey through this experience has been so fraught with twists and turns. Mr. Daher represents a prior generation of pharmacists. Quite frankly, my father's generation. For those of you who don't know, my father happens to be a pharmacist as well. And in these prior generations of pharmacists, they truly believed that the role of pharmacist was that of the dispenser, not the asker of questions and second doubting prescribers. And I think the downfall of many of these veteran former generations of pharmacists is that they had a fundamental misunderstanding of what their role as a pharmacist was. That their job was limited solely to making sure that the right drug got in the hands of the right people. No questions asked. And yes, there was this gut check every once in a while, and for the obvious addict, there was no giving controlled substances to them. But insofar as the relationship between pharmacist and prescriber, that has profoundly changed of late. Mr. Daher represents the new generation of reformed pharmacists that now, quite frankly, he gets it. That the role of his, if the board were to agree to his licensure reinstatement as a pharmacist, Mr. Daher knows all about corresponding responsibility and the role of the pharmacist being fundamentally different today as it compared to generations past. And so it's within that light that we are making the petition to the board today to ask the board to consider Mr. Daher's considerable reformation evidence and documentation that we'll be going through shortly, but also at the end, understand that his foundational understanding of his role as a pharmacist is not as it was back when he got his licensure revoked. And so the ask is going to be to fully reinstate his license as a pharmacist because he gets it now. And that's essentially it. Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. I've marked Exhibit 1 and it is admitted in evidence. So I'm going to allow right now for Mr. Park to present the petitioner's evidence, and I'm assuming that your client is ready to testify. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
I am. All right, Mr. Daher, are you in a quiet place where you're not going to be disturbed and alone with the door closed behind you?
Yes.
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that in the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding, you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
All right, thank you. Start us out by stating and spelling your full name for the record.
My name is Albert Daher.
All right. I'm going to give you a couple of very brief directions as to testimony. First, your attorney, Mr. Park, is going to ask you questions to essentially put forth your testimony, the things that he believes you need to talk about in front of the board members. And that's called direct examination. What you will need to know is that if you're in a hurry to answer questions, you will not give the opposing attorney an opportunity to lodge a potential objection at the end of each question. That's something that lawyers do. They listen carefully to the question being asked, and they may pose a legal objection. That's perfectly normal. So I don't want you to clip off the end of the question with your answer. I'd like you to make sure that you hear the full question being asked, and then let several seconds go by so that you know that no one is objecting, and then give your answer. It is really important to be deliberate like this when we're all dealing with not being in the same room together as we would normally do a hearing. So just be very deliberate and allow for several seconds before you give your answer. If you're asked a question and you don't understand what the question calls for, just say so and it will be rephrased for you. And now, if you're asked a question and you don't know what the answer would be because it falls outside the scope of your past experience or your knowledge, please don't guesstimate or speculate your way to an answer. The board cannot consider speculation as evidence. It's of no real value. So there may be a time when the correct answer to a question is, I don't know, and that's perfectly acceptable. All right, so we're going to proceed with Mr. Park asking questions on direct examination. When he lets me know that he's concluded his questions, we'll switch over to cross-examination by Ms. Jarvis. And before we do that, I'll give you a couple of very brief comments on cross-examination. And then there may be further questions coming from Mr. Park on what's called redirect. And then the board members will be able to ask any questions that they may have for you. So we're ready to go. Mr. Park, you may proceed on direct. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Daher, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. So Mr. Daher, to start off, could you please tell the board about yourself personally, your background, as well as your overall career in pharmacy as a pharmacist?
Yes. Um, First of all, I want to thank you for letting me appear before the board for a second time. I was born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon. I immigrated to the United States in 1978 during the Lebanese Civil War. I had the opportunity to go to college and get an education. I went to Oregon State University, graduated from the College of Pharmacy, which was what I always wanted to do. I come from a family of many pharmacists. Um, After graduation, I moved to Los Angeles, where I worked for a few years, and then starting in 1987, I opened my first pharmacy. And at one time, I owned 4 pharmacies. The last one was J. Scott Drugs in Burbank. Um, I've been married for 33 years to my wife, Fadia, and together we have 4 children. My oldest son, Michael, is a pharmacist. He graduated from Oregon State University, College of Pharmacy. My second son is Gabriel, who's um, has a degree from Oregon State, also University for Public Health. And my daughter, Isabella, is a third-year pharmacy student at Oregon State University. And my youngest one, Sophia, is also at Oregon State, which you can tell we're all Oregon State family. And she's on her way to becoming a physician assistant at this time.
So your entire family is in healthcare, sounds like, your kids anyway, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that information. So um, I'd like to direct your attention to some of the letters of recommendation. I know that there's considerable amounts of letters of recommendation, but I just wanted to highlight just a couple of them, if I may. With regards to Ella Navarro, she's the nurse at City of Hope. Could you explain your relationship with her?
Yes. She is the case manager for the surgery department at the City of Hope Cancer Hospital. And, as I stated in my petition, I do work in a pharmacy and I do work as a clerk. Excuse me. I do work as a clerk and I work, I intake the patient information, the demographics, they send them to me. I type the prescriptions as they come in. If they do need a prior authorization or any questions in terms of insurance, I go ahead and take care of that, type the labels, send them to technicians to fill them, pharmacists check them, then put the whole thing together and coordinate with the case manager on the discharge with the patient and delivery of the medication.
Is that the reason? Is that the reason why you're wearing that? It looks like a clerk's smock. In fact, what is that jacket that you're wearing?
It's my original pharmacist jacket that I do wear because I do work as a clerk on a daily basis.
But obviously, you don't work as a pharmacist, correct?
No, I don't.
Okay. So, with regards to the next, when highlighting again some of the letters of recommendation, Emily Aguila, who is she and how do you know her?
She's also she's the supervisor, case manager at the City of Hope, and it's the same situation. We work with many case managers at the City of Hope on a daily basis, and she does the same thing. Send me the patient's demographics whenever patients need to be discharged. I type their prescriptions, make sure there is no problem with the insurance or prior authorization or medical cars or whatever the situation is, and I move it down to be typed and filled and checked. And I coordinate the delivery and discharge with the case manager.
So it appears that quite a number of your support letters and recommendation letters came from various members from the City of Hope, and so why is that? What's the connection between you as an individual and City of Hope?
We work together. I mean, I work in the pharmacy here at Pax Pharmacy, and I do work as a clerk, and my communication with them is continuous during the day, with several patients being discharged, and they know my situation, and I, help them making sure the patients go home with their medication and there is no interruption with treatment for them.
So all of these healthcare individuals that you interact on as a clerk for the pharmacy, they all know about your revocation as a pharmacist,
Yes, they do.
and they have no problem to your knowledge of that fact.
They had no problem. I do not consult. I do not do anything as a pharmacist.
And the pharmacy that you work at now, what pharmacy is that?
Tax pharmacy.
And who is the owner of the pharmacy?
My son.
So your son is your boss? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
At this time, he is my boss. It's interesting how things change. When you were younger, you were the boss of your son. Now he's my boss.
Okay, I suppose the circle of life kicks in. With regards to your some of the other letters of recommendation that you received that are licensed by the California Board of Pharmacy, who is Monica Trivedi?
Monica is a pharmacist that is the assistant to the dean of the Marshall B. Ketchum College of Pharmacy. I met her a few years back, and I asked her if I could talk to the students of the College of Pharmacy and try to help them out in terms by really explaining what I did wrong and um, try to help them understand the rules. How I was very clear in terms of what wrong I did, and I told them about it. I talked about the cure system, where they have to use it. I talked about corresponding responsibilities. I talked about them making sure there is substance abuse out there, and a lot of people will come and try to get things from you if you know. And basically, I tried to be very careful explaining what happened and help them understand it and to protect the public.
So Monica Trivedi is a registered pharmacist who is a high-level administrator at the which school of pharmacy?
Marshall B. Ketchum.
The Marshall B. Ketchum, the one in Fullerton, I believe that is correct.
Yes.
And so you're telling the board here that you actually spoke in front of them?
Yes, I did.
And about all the lessons that you learned as a pharmacist, is that correct?
I spoke to them about my license revocation and how it was revoked, what I did wrong, and for them to prevent things like that happening to them in the future.
Did you offer the students? Did you offer the students an opportunity to ask you questions and interact with you that way?
Yes, they did.
How did you find the students' questions and how did they respond to you?
They were very concerned, and they were very supportive. They were concerned about their licenses, and I gave them, the information that I had, to go through. I gave them they have to make sure that the public is protected. There is substance abuse. Use the cure system, and do the best they can in making sure that their dispensing of prescriptions is according to corresponding responsibility. Make sure it's used for legitimate use.
Okay. Another letter supporter is Mr. Chad Noor, another pharmacist registered in California. Who is Chad Noor, excuse me, and what is your relationship with him?
I met Chad as a pharmacist. We belong both to the San Gabriel Pharmacists Association, and I am a member of the San Gabriel Pharmacists Association. We work together on legislative issues. We meet monthly. We help the student members, any questions they have. We put events together to promote the practice of pharmacy.
So, would you describe yourself as being very actively involved in the profession of pharmacy?
Yes, I am.
Even though you're not a pharmacist currently?
Even though I'm not a pharmacist currently, yes.
Why is that? I think one would naturally, I suppose, assume that once you lose your license as a pharmacist, because you no longer have a skin in the game, so to speak, that you would kind of stop your involvement. But yet you seem to be as engaged with the profession as ever. Why is that?
I love the profession of pharmacy. I love being with people, talking to people, helping.
Let's talk about your CEs, because there seems to be quite a number of CEs that you took, in excess of 300 or so hours, at least since 2014. Could you describe, when you did all these CEs, first of all, why did you do so many CEs?
I wanted to re-educate myself. I took many CEs, continuing education that had to do with law, with substance abuse, addiction treatment, control, the corresponding responsibilities, just to re-educate myself and restart fresh.
So did you focus your search on the types of CE based upon your revocation? Is that what happened?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And didn't you participate, or didn't you sign up for and attend a joint session between the board and DEA? Do you remember when that was?
That was in 2016, I believe. And the Board of Pharmacy sent an email that there is a joint session with the DEA, that they will go over controlled substance abuse and treatment. And
And how did you find that course?
I'm still get daily emails from the Board of Pharmacy. Anytime anything comes up, I'm signed up with the Board of Pharmacy. They notify us.
Do you remember what you learned or observed during that joint course offered by the DEA and the board?
Mostly the corresponding responsibility that and red flags. To look for red flags. There's many of them. Also corresponding responsibility and substance abuse and treatment.
You also appear to have taken a year-long course on ethics and professionalism that was sponsored by the Institute of Medical Quality. Could you speak and describe what that was about?
This is a year-long program. It starts with a 2-day meeting where they teach you about the ethics in pharmacy, the oath of the pharmacy, the pharmacist code of ethics, and the obligation of to the profession. They train you. They give you the training where first, like if you're faced with a ethical situation, you look for the facts first, and then try to identify the ethical problem there. And then you go through a process of positive things and negative things, and eventually assess the consequences and come out with a decision whether to do that, what to do with that ethical situation.
Within this course, do you recall any discussions on specifically the issues of controlled substance dispensing?
Yes, I mean, the whole thing is after that, it takes a whole year where they send you cases during every month or so. Then you have to evaluate it and send in your answer. Many of the cases dealt with, they had a wide range of ethical situations. But, there is some situation where there is let's say a person who's 30 years old was coming to your pharmacy regularly, and for 3 months in a row, he's coming with let's say, a Percocet prescription, oxycodone and acetaminophen. And that kind of, okay, like, why is that patient coming with a low back pain? So you're concerned about it, and you have to check and see, possibly this patient is going to get addicted to this medication. 3 months, I mean, there's no treatment plan at this time, and you make a decision whether to continue filling that prescription or not.
Would you continue filling that prescription?
I do not know.
The last major course that you took that appears on the record is a certification course to become a, quote, pharmacy regulatory specialist from a PharmCon company. Could you explain what that is, please?
That's a 31-hour continuing education. It is run by David Freshwood. He's the authority on pain management. It talks about all the regulatory agencies like the FDA, the DEA, Board of Pharmacies. It talks about corresponding responsibilities, again, substance abuse and misuse and treatment. And after finishing the whole program, you're certified, and you'll be like if you work in a facility or for a company, you're the person to go to become anybody that have any regulatory question.
And since you've taken that course, have you in fact answered people's questions regarding regulatory compliance issues?
Yes, a couple of times. It was mostly HIPAA information.
HIPAA as in privacy rights?
Yes.
I see. I'd like to talk now about your various community service because you've done a lot of community service. Let's first talk about your current volunteerism at the Santa Teresita Medical Center located in Duarte, California. Could you describe what do you do and how often do you do it for this facility?
For the last 2 years, I work here in PAX Pharmacy, which is located here on campus at Santa Teresita Medical Center. They do have 2 assisted living, a skilled nursing facility. They have 2 convents for the nuns, for sisters, Carmelite sisters, one for the elderly retired nuns and one for the younger. And they have a school on campus too. I've been volunteering at their medical record and trying to update their information on their computer database. Same thing, I did that with the school. I updated all their database information. I participated in what they call an active shooter drill, where somebody comes and starts shooting on campus or something like that, God forbid, and came out with a plan for the school to lock the school immediately, bring the children in, lock it down, install blocks, install shades, make sure everybody is safe within within like minutes as soon as the alarm sounds. And among other things, I do participate in daily masses here and bring in patients from the nurses' stations to the church to mass daily. And I do help in any way they ask me to help.
And how often do you help this Santa Teresita Medical Center on a weekly basis? How many?
It's on a daily basis. I've been here for 2 years. We've been here for more than 2 years, but I've been here helping them for 2 years, volunteering here, and it's on a daily basis. I go in lunch hour, after hours in the evening, when it's quiet. It's in the same campus, so it's easy to move from one place to the other, and as much as I can help.
You also seem you have a volunteerism history at the Western Pacific Medical Corporation in dealing with opioid addiction patients. Could you talk about that, please?
Yes. This is a drug rehab facility. They have they're licensed by the DEA. They're licensed by the FDA and also by Mental Health Administration. I volunteered there and worked on updating all their rules, regulations after reviewing all the current rules and regulations, and I updated their rules and regulations. While I was there, I had a chance to interact with patients and staff on a limited basis.
And you also, so this was a prior volunteerism, correct?
That's in 2014.
Okay. And then in 2016, you also volunteered, I think, weekly basis at the Holy Medical Center. Is that true?
Yes.
And what did you do there?
It is run by a substance addiction treatment office run by Dr. Oganian. And I participated with him in treatment sessions. I was able to sit down and listen to patients, discussing their problems, how substance abuse, how drugs affected their lives, and affected their family, their spouses, their children, their parents.
So you got a chance to actually sit down and talk with some of these addicted patients?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any takeaways, or what did you learn from that experience?
It's very troubling to me because I was able to talk to patients with addiction and how it affected them, and especially that under my care patients died by overdoses. And I wished I could go back and do something different to change the outcome of what happened. It is something that will stay with me, and it's been still with me since 12 years. It started in 2008, and we're in 2020 right now. And if I can go back and change things, I will do it in a heartbeat. But it's difficult to do that. Just learn from the past and try to do your best in helping the patient.
You also seem to be quite involved in various pharmacy associations. I think you had previously mentioned the San Gabriel Pharmacists Association, correct?
Yes.
Are you also involved in some new association? Can you talk about that?
Yes. Again, I'm also involved in the California Pharmacy Association, Pharmacists Association, and we just recently in January started a Middle Eastern Pharmacists Association for our Arabic-speaking pharmacists. The first event, we invited pharmacists and students of pharmacy, and we did the event at my house. We hosted it. About 60 patients, 60 pharmacists and students showed up the first time. And we started with the bylaws, and we started a corporation, fully licensed at this time. And as of this morning, I was checking, there is 311 participants, pharmacists and students of pharmacy as members of this organization. The plans are on hold right now because of COVID-19, but to hold a community outreaches for our community and try to educate them on their blood pressure, whether it's diabetes, whether it's substance abuse, that type of stuff, and try to educate as much as we can.
And speaking of educating, you had mentioned that you had spoken to, I believe it was first-year pharmacy students at the Ketchum School of Pharmacy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have there been any other students that you've spoken and shared your cautionary tale?
Yes, I did. I did talk to 3 high schools. I talked to Thousand Oaks students, high school. I had made a computer generated plan where I talked to them about the abuse of prescription drugs and try to educate students about the dangers of it. Go through slide by slide and talk to them about the data that's out there, and how especially students or young adults think that if prescription medication is written by a doctor must be safe. And so I explained to them the dangers of it and the addiction, and that their heart could, their lungs could stop breathing and they could die from abusing these drugs. I also spoke with St. Francis High School, boys school, and Mayfield School for Girls, and I'm always available. I send emails out to different high schools. If anybody is interested, they would reach out for me and ask me to do that. I'm available.
Before we go on, is there a way for you to make the microphone closer to your mouth? I feel like it's getting a little bit difficult to understand you. Thank you, Mr. Daher. So the 3 high schools, once again, were which 3? You said 3 high schools, correct?
Yes. Thousand Oaks High School in Thousand Oaks, St. Francis High School, and Mayfield in Pasadena.
Okay, thank you. And about when did you go visit these high schools?
In 2000, after the revocation, 2014 and on.
So moving on to the dollar amount, I believe it was $57,000 and some change, if you will. of the cost recovery, have you in fact paid the entirety of that to the Board of Pharmacy?
Yes, I did.
Okay, just wanted to make that crystal clear. So you know, as of right now, you owe no money to the board?
Correct.
Correct. I guess one of the things I'd like to kind of go over is just to make sure that you understand corresponding responsibility. I'd like to kind of go through a hypothetical, if you will, so you can demonstrate to the board how you would treat a scenario involving controlled substance now as compared to how you used to do things back then when you owned the J. Scott drug case. So say you're a pharmacist, say the Board of Pharmacy agrees to reinstate your license as a pharmacist, and you are presented with a prescription for Vicodin plus Soma plus Xanax. And the patient hands you this prescription. What do you do?
I would not fill that prescription. That's indicative of a abused drug. It's the Trinity, so it's very highly abused, and I will not fill that one.
You had used the term Trinity. What's that? What does that Trinity term mean?
It's like a combination of 3 drugs: the opiate with a muscle relaxer and an anti-anxiety. It gives a feeling of like a morphine type feeling or like a heroin type feeling.
So in your prior life, I like to describe it as your prior life when you used to own the J. Scott drugs. Is it something that would a prescription like that be something that you would have actually considered filling?
At that time, from what I used to read on my continuing education, it said that patients come in with pain, you have to treat the pain. Once they have pain, they get anxiety, and you treat the anxiety. And with the anxiety, also there is spasm with the pain, muscle spasm. So you give it the Soma. So, but at that time. But right now, with all the reading I've done and the education I've done, these are prescriptions shouldn't be filled.
So back to the Trinity prescription, even if you had contacted the prescriber and the prescriber directly told you over the phone, fill it for my patient, would you still not fill the prescription?
Correct. Yes, I will not fill the prescription.
Okay. Thank you for that. So you work now as a clerk in your son's pharmacy, correct?
Yes.
If the Board of Pharmacy would give you your pharmacist license back, what would you do?
I would just be a relief pharmacist in case needed. But I'll continue to do whatever I'm doing right now. Same thing.
And why do you want to do the things that you don't have to. I mean, I don't know what your situation is, but it sounds like you have a very busy life as is. Why do you want to be a pharmacist?
It's the profession I love, and we all make mistakes in life. I made a mistake. I want to be a good example for my children by addressing the mistake and correcting it. As I said before, I have 4 children, and I want to make sure I'm a good example to them. The other thing is I want to regain the trust of the people that my patients over the years, many patients, I want to be able to regain their trust, regain the trust of my fellow pharmacists, and most importantly, regain the trust of the Board of Pharmacy by being able to become a pharmacist.
Thank you very much, Dr. Herr. Your Honor, I have nothing further at this time.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Park. We're going to switch over now to Ms. Jarvis, the Deputy Attorney General, asking questions on cross-examination. And Mr. Daher, cross-examination is different than direct examination. Mr. Park was able to ask you questions that were very often open-ended to allow you to describe in your own words various experiences or situations or thoughts and feelings you had about some of the things he brought up. Cross-examination is often much more specific in the questions asked, and you're not allowed to have the discretion to give long narrative answers, especially if it's a short question and calls for perhaps even a yes or no answer. You have to simply answer what the question calls for and then stop your answer, end it, and wait for the next question. It's much more constricted in terms of how you're allowed to answer questions. Now, if your lawyer wants to have you expand on something that comes up on cross, he may choose to ask you further questions on redirect, but that would come later. For right now, you need to focus only on answering each question that Ms. Jarvis asks you and then waiting for the next question. All right, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Jarvis, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Daher, so it sounds to me like you're saying that you really saw yourself when you were a pharmacist as a pill dispenser more than an independent professional. Is that accurate?
I am a professional. I'm not a pill dispenser as a pill dispenser. The situation in 2008 is different when the situation is in 2020 right now. It is in filling prescriptions.
So you believe your professional responsibilities have changed or would be changed if you got your license back now than they were in 2008?
I'm a professional right now.
Well, are you familiar with Business and Professions Code Section 4036?
Can you state it for me?
That's okay. It's not supposed to be a trick question. 4036 defines a pharmacist as somebody who holds a license to practice pharmacy issued by the Board of Pharmacy. You do not hold such a license, correct?
Correct.
So my question was, do you believe that if you were to get your license back today or after this process, that your professional responsibilities would be different than they were in 2008 when you were revoked?
No, they would not.
So then you were unaware of your professional responsibilities in 2008 when you were revoked.
Yes.
Now, you had mentioned doing some continuing education, I believe, since you were revoked. Were you not doing continuing education before you were revoked?
Yes, I was.
When did you work at Good Neighbor Pharmacy?
Good Neighbor Pharmacy is not a, it's independently owned and it's part of a co-op. My pharmacy used to be a Good Neighbor Pharmacy. It's like a co-op.
Can you explain that a little bit more? So it's like a coalition of multiple pharmacies?
Yeah, independent owners through our wholesaler. We belong to this Good Neighbor Pharmacy, and we have advertising, purchasing, different education type stuff that we use. It's a co-op, so I'm independently owned under myself, but I belong to the Good Neighbor Pharmacy at that time. I no longer belong to them.
I see. Your counsel asked you a hypothetical question. I'm going to ask you a slightly different one. Let's say you get a prescription just for Norco, just a 10-day supply of Norco, and somebody comes in and says, I need to fill this prescription, and you look at their address, and where are you located? Where's your facility?
Right now, I don't make those decisions, but it's a hypothetical answer, and I'll give you the best answer I can.
Right, but where is your facility? What town?
In Duarte. We are in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. So let's say you look at this person's driver's license and they're from Modesto. Would you give them that Norco?
First, I have to check for the red flags and check the cures. I would have to check where the doctor is. I would have the patient is in Modesto. It's a 10-day prescription. Is it once a day? Is it 10 times a day? Is it 5 times a day? You got to look at the different scenarios in that prescription. And if he was visiting here, if it was emergency, depending on the situation. But if it's usually we nowadays everything has to be filled for about 7 days. 10 days is over the limit, and most probably I will not fill it.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions at this time. Thank you very much.
All right, this is Judge DeCure. I think this is a good time for President Lippy to go down his list of our board members that are participating in the hearing and ask each one if they have questions. And then I will follow up with you, Mr. Park, and ask if you have redirect when we're done with that. Go ahead, President
Thank you, Your Honor. I will now call Ryan Brooks. Do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ricardo Sanchez.
I don't have any questions either.
Okay. Sung Oh.
No question.
Thank you. Maria Serpa.
Hi, I do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Mr. Daher, in looking at the record and your previous testimony, you made a statement, and I wanted you to comment on that statement and see if you agree, or if your position has changed. I'm trying to find it because I want to read it to you. I don't want to misstate your comments here. And it was regarding one of the instances of a patient death that occurred all those years ago. And it's a quote here, so I just wanted you to listen to it and then let us know if you remain with the same statement or if you have a change. I did not sell AS his medication in a dark alley. He walked into my store. We regret his death, but ultimately he is responsible for his own actions. Were his parents aware of his drug addiction? Did they do anything about it?
Yeah, my position has changed on that, and I apologized for that in my last hearing, and I again apologize for that statement. It's something that I regret saying, and I again apologize for that.
So just to follow up, what has changed over the time that has led you to this new place of how you feel about the situation?
After working at substance abuse clinic and the Western medical, seeing all these patients with addiction problems and trying to pour all their inner, most emotional problems that deals with addiction, I felt, totally different how I felt back then.
Thank you. No more questions.
Okay. Albert Wong.
No question.
Thank you. Debbie Veal.
Yes, thank you. I have just a couple questions. So, Mr. Daher, what is the purpose of you wearing that jacket today? It does look like a pharmacist jacket. I know Dr. Park said, technician jacket, but it does look like a pharmacist because it's white. Is there a message you're trying to relay to us by wearing that white jacket today?
No, because I am working today. I am in the pharmacy, and that's how I come to work and work every day. And after this, I'll go back to my job as a clerk.
I got it. And what does it say over on the side? Is that just your name? I see good neighbor on, I guess, I don't know, things are turned on.
It says Albert Daher on the other side.
Okay. So it doesn't say pharmacist or technician or anything?
It does say pharmacist, but I do have a name tag, and it says clerk on it. I use that. I work in the back. I don't interact with anybody in the pharmacy walk-ins or any of that. My position is way in the back.
Okay. And do you actually maybe cover the word pharmacist with your name tag? Is that what you mean?
Yes. If you like, I can get you the name tag and show it.
And I think I believe you. Thank you. Thank you for answering that. So in the beginning, Dr. You were a pharmacist from his father's era, and you were taught to not ask questions, but just to dispense prescriptions. And I think this.
Can you repeat the breakup in the sound here?
Yes. Okay, let me start over. When Dr. Park originally was asking, am I not coming through? Can you hear me now?
You're breaking up. Are you on a cell phone?
Can you hear me?
We can, but we hear little bits of you.
No. Oh, I'm using the link from the. Okay, I muted and unmuted to see if that did anything. Did that do anything?
Excuse me. This
Right
is
now we can hear.
Hi, this is Judge Akir. One thing, I've done a lot of these hearings at this point, and when this happens, often somebody has their mic open. It's picking up sound. So let's just make sure everybody who's not speaking is muted. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Daher, can you hear me okay now? No? Okay. I'll pass.
This is the moderator. Board Member Veal, I can hear you pretty well. And I went ahead and muted everyone except for Albert Daher. Could you try speaking again?
Mr. Daher, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. And clearly, I'm not breaking up anymore?
So far, not. So far, it's good.
Okay. Thank you. So what I was saying is that Dr. Park, in the very beginning, when he was kind of laying out the case, he said that you were a pharmacist from another generation, that you were taught to fill prescriptions, but not questions. And then when Ms. Jarvis asked you some questions, it sounded like you were aware.
This is the moderator. It looks like Board Member Veal's connection is disconnecting. I may want to ask if we can take a quick recess to see if we can try to connect her through her phone rather than her computer audio.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, this is Judge Akir. We're off the record, and let us know when you're ready, Ms. Moderator. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Veal, if you could connect your audio by your phone.
Where do I do that? I usually, I do WebEx all the time, but I don't see, oh wait, here we go, audio connection. Okay.
And it'll give you a number to call in.
Okay, it says call 415-655-0002.
Correct.
And then enter the access code 928-399-744 #.
Correct.
And I'm attendee ID 2533 #.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by
All right, Board Member Veal, looks like you're connected by phone. Can you do a quick mic check?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, this is Judge Shakir. We're back on the record, and Ms. Veal was having technical difficulties, but she's going to resume with her questions from Mr. Daher, who's still under oath. Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Daher, thank you for your patience. I'm just going to start over at the beginning of the question because I don't know at what point I broke up, okay?
Yes.
My question was that Dr. Park made the comment during his opening statements that in your era, you were taught not to ask questions, but just to fill prescriptions. However, when Ms. Jarvis asked you questions, you indicated that you did understand your professional responsibility when these prescriptions were filled. I just want to clarify in my mind, because I'm actually from your era also. So I'm just curious, what, did you understand your professional responsibility at the time you filled these prescriptions?
Yes, to go back to the era first, we're still young. I think you're still young. I'm still young. So that's a good era. It's, we do understand our responsibilities, and it's not that I am from an era where I just fill without questioning a doctor or a prescription. We did question, and we did document. We did all that, but in certain cases, I did make the wrong decision, and that's what it was basically about.
Thank you, Mr. Daher. President Lippi, that I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Okay, Jig Patel.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler.
Yes, I just had one question, basically going back to what Debbie was asking as far as the white jacket. What jacket do the clerks or the techs wear in the pharmacy that you're now working at?
They have like a sports polo shirt, and it identifies them as a technician.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a question. Back in 2008, I was around then, and I was quite familiar with the Holy Trinity combination. I'm not a pharmacist, and I knew exactly what the effects were. Are you saying that you did not know the effects back then?
I did know the effects of it because I did talk to the medical board at the time. But at the time, we had that the doctor was prescribing this medication. He was certified by the medical board as a pain management doctor, and the Dr. Best that we were talking about. And when I questioned it with a medical board inspector, he says you can continue filling the prescription unless you see something on the website comes up different. So that's why I didn't know about it at the time, but I did not question it because he was a pain management doctor, and the board identified him as that.
Well, what about the early refills and the refills without authorization?
It was a one prescription. It had 3 prescriptions on it, and it was for the person that passed away. The doctor post dated it, and we did not catch the post dating on it because the doctor was traveling supposedly. That was one prescription with 3 medication on it. That's what it was. It wasn't like on a regular basis everybody was getting early refills, or we did not contact the doctor. So that made that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What about the other 4 patients that died? What were those circumstances?
The complaint had 3 complaints to it. The person, the AS, he is the person that overdosed on his medication, and the mother filed the first complaint. The second complaint was from a AC, and he had been at my pharmacy twice, and he was admitted to a rehab clinic in Pasadena. And that night at the rehab clinic, they overdosed him, and he died there. The third person was we discovered that he was an addict. The mother filed a complaint, but he was an addict that we discovered him. He did not pass away. We sent him away. We never filled his prescription. The complaint came 3 years later. He came in twice. We refused to fill his prescription. That's these 3. And then the others that passed away, some of them passed away from things that we did not dispense. Like there was cocaine in their bloodstream, there were morphine, and we did not dispense morphine. They found bottles of morphine on their, next to them or whatever it was, and cocaine and things like that. But that's how the board decided that they came through my pharmacy on several occasions.
Mm-hmm.
I feel responsible for their death.
Thank you. That's all. Okay, those are all the questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. This is Judge DeCure. Let's now go back to Mr. Park and ask if you have any redirect, Mr. Park, for your client.
Thanks, Your Honor. Yes, I do have a couple of questions for Mr. Daher. So, Mr. Daher, are you currently a pharmacist?
No, I'm not.
Do others in your pharmacy consider you a pharmacist?
No, they don't.
Do any of the healthcare workers that you engage with via communications, verbal or written, do any of them consider you a pharmacist?
They do not consider me as a pharmacist at all. Any questions that come up, I refer them. We have 2 pharmacists on staff full time. And any questions, I refer them to them.
Do you represent yourself to anybody in any way, shape, or form as a pharmacist?
No, I don't.
With regards to your CEs, the record shows that you took hundreds of CEs. To be clear, before you took these hundreds of CEs, you kept up with your CE requirements as required by the Board of Pharmacy, correct?
Yes, I did.
And so what was the reason for taking these hundreds of extra units of CEs?
To just update my knowledge. At the time in 2008 and before, the prescriptions, the red flags that we were reading about, weren't as common as it is right now. So at that time, they were saying that a patient, if he comes from far away to a pain management doctor, that's because maybe they don't have in their area pain management. So, but things changed, and that's why I wanted to update my information and knowledge.
So going forward, again, if you were to be granted reinstatement as a pharmacist, are you saying that all of the I guess, troublesome prescriptions, for lack of a better description, that you would not dispense a single one of those today?
Correct.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, this is Judge DeCure. Ms. Jarvis, do you have any further recross?
This is the moderator. Ms. Jarvis, you're currently muted.
I do not. Thank you.
Sorry, this is Judge DeCure. I think I'm not muted right now.
Correct.
Judge, this
sorry,
is
I can tell we. Go ahead.
Judge, this is the board's counsel, Noreen Marks, and
Yes.
before you began asking for any closing remarks, on this end, we think that there may have been a failure to swear in the petitioner before he spoke. We weren't sure, but we can't remember if there was any swearing in. So I just want to raise that to see if there was something you needed to clarify or correct on the record. Thank you.
All right. I actually have an independent recollection that I did swear in the witness, and the reason is because I remember asking, which is customary for me, asking Mr. Daher to state and spell his full name for the record, and he stated his full name, but he didn't spell it, and I decided to let that pass. Let me refer to Ms. Jarvis and ask her if she recalls whether I swore in the witness.
Okay, thank you.
I do recall that you swore in the witness and that also occurred where Mr. Daher did not spell his name. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Daher. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I think we know how to spell your name.
Thank you. I just missed that part when you spoke about it, and the phone broke, and I didn't hear the spell your name part. I state your name. That's what I heard. That.
Yeah, that's a good way to let a witness clear his throat, so to speak. So that's why I remembered that. At any rate, is there anything else from counsel before I move on?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Nothing for me.
Thank you. Here's the situation now. We've got a time issue. It's 12:33. We've been going for nearly 2 hours. We started at 10:48. And so we can do one of two things. We're near the end of the hearing, and if the board members and Mr. president, you'd like to push through with making the parties having their closing remarks now, and then I'll close the record. Or if anyone needs a 5-minute recess, we can do that and then come back and have the closing remarks. After I close the record, we'll definitely talk about a recess for the middle of the day because it's pushing 1 o'clock by the time we finish. If we go right now.
Okay, I would like to push through, but if anybody wants to take a 5-minute break at this point, please let me know now.
This is the moderator. I noticed that Albert Wong's audio connection has dropped. So I don't know if he's able to hear or speak. So I'm not sure if maybe taking a quick 5-minute break to solve that issue would help.
Okay. 5 minutes isn't that long. Let's go ahead.
All right, that's fine. Judge DeCure, my clock on my computer shows 12:34, so let's reconvene at 12:39. Thank you. We're off the record.
Thank you.